It's late summer in 2015, college is a joke, and it's time for arguably the best annual tournament in independent wrestling. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla presents the Battle of Los Angeles. What's a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla? It's a wrestling promotion in Southern California founded in 2003 by 6 local wrestlers. Pretty quickly, it blew up into one of the premier spots for indie wrestling in the country and the world. Tons of names you've probably heard of made their mark in PWG before taking over the larger wrestling universe. It's become one of the places to be in indie wrestling, a place to prove what you can really do and make a name for yourself. Somewhere you can get your shit in, if you will. They put on shows about once a month or so, before the world imploded at least, usually with a bunch of random matches between top names in indie wrestling mixed with wrestlers from the Southern California area. In the ring, everyone gets at least like 10 to 20 minutes of seemingly unbridled creative freedom. They rarely do more than one storyline at a time, mostly just focusing on great one-off matches, though they do have tag titles and a world title, and they do angles sparingly. The farther back in time you go, the more angles and storylines you'll see. Being in Southern California, naturally there's a lucha libre influence. Back then you saw it a lot in the SoCal guys, and these days wrestlers from all over the world bring the lucha style to Southern California, as well as pretty much any other style you can think of. They don't do TV or pay-per-views, nope, just straight to DVD every time. This not only cuts down on costs, I assume, but it permits them to book talent contracted to other promotions whom they'd otherwise wouldn't be able to get, places like Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. If tape trading was still a thing these days and the internet didn't exist, PWG shows would be a goldmine that any hardcore fan would find too good to be true. But it is true. They also have great show names. And that's PWG in a nutshell. The Battle of Los Angeles is an annual single elimination tournament with either 16, 24, or if it's 2011, 8 participants. When you have some of the best talent in the world in a tournament together every year, it kind of becomes a big deal. The first one was in 2005. Since then, participants and winners have been a veritable who's who in independent wrestling, including but not limited to that guy everyone loves, the Steve Kern of China, Penis Dude, insert some being elite reference here, literally a saint, Fatso, the relatively nerdy guy in a group of cool kids but we love him anyway, and that one guy from Kentucky. 2 people who have been in the tournament multiple times each but have never won just happen to be the focus of this video. Chris Hero and Jack Evans. Chris Hero, also known as Cassius Ono, or if you're a Karen from the Midwest in the late 90s, Wife Beater, is an incredibly seasoned journeyman who has performed for virtually every wrestling promotion in existence over the last 20 years. By 2015, he's known as the Knockout Artist, because he elbows the shit out of people, among other things. You'll see. His opponent, Jack Evans, is what Randy Orton would call a flippy boy. But I don't mean that as an insult, it just is what it is. Evans, too, is a well-known veteran of that 20x20, with a resume spanning most of the prominent independent promotions in the United States, in addition to being a mainstay for Asistencia, Asesoría y Administración, better known as AAA, down in Mexico. Their paths had only crossed a few times over the years, but never in a singles match that I know of. And shit, there's no time like the present. But before we go over this match, first I want to talk about pretty much all wrestling matches. In order to appreciate why I think this match is special, I think it'll help to first explain how a typical wrestling match is told in the ring. While there are a whole slew of ways to put on a wrestling match, there is one tried and true formula for putting on a very basic match that I'd like to talk about here. It's been around for decades, you've probably seen it a million times, and you may or may not have caught on. Here's your standard one-on-one pro wrestling match. Once upon a time, there was a wrestler of questionable moral fiber named The Heel. That night, he was scheduled to exhibition against a very good wrestler, and a very good man at that, named The Babyface. As the match started, the crowd, naturally, was very into the Babyface. Look at this sweetheart, how can you not love him? The Heel was sure to let everyone know what he thought of them, too. They begin to wrestle, and soon it becomes clear that the Babyface is the better wrestler. The Heel may have gotten a few licks in, but Babyface ultimately proves to be superior within their exchanges. In other words, Heel is making Babyface look real good. He's shining him up, if you will. After a certain point, Heel has had enough. He can't seem to beat him wrestling, so what does this asshole do? He cheats, Poke him in the eyes, kick him in the balls, I don't know, something sneaky or something not cool. Now it's the heel's best chance yet. Even if you haven't heard of these other ones, you've probably heard of this one, the heat. This is when the heel beats the shit out of our boy Babyface, while being a real dick about it. Our sympathy for the Babyface grows. Babyface doesn't quit though. He lets us know he's still in the fight from time to time, even if heel does eventually end up back on offense. That's called a hope spot. The heat continues until the hope spot to end all hope spots. At some point, basically one of two things will happen. Either A, the babyface manages to hit a big move out of desperation, the heel goes down, and the babyface is down too out of sheer exhaustion, as the referee begins a standing 10 count. Or there's a second option, B, the heel slaps on a submission, and the babyface, with the encouragement from the crowd, valiantly fights out of it. Either one of these options, or plenty others if you're creative, will lead to... The babyface is on fire now, yay! 1 bump, 2 bumps, boom, big move, pin that motherfucker, 1, 2, 3? It could end right here, babyface wins and everyone's happy, or heel can kick out and you can keep going. Then it's time for most people's favorite part, the false finishes. Babyface and heel go back and forth, exchanging big moves for near falls. You don't know who's gonna win, until finally... This can go a million ways, as I'm sure you're aware. Babyface can beat heel cleanly, heel can cheat somehow and steal the match, heel's cheating can backfire and the babyface wins somehow. The possibilities are endless, as are the variations on this entire formula. You can tweak it all you want, repeat sections, cut a section out, barely follow it at all. It's art, do whatever the hell you want. This is just the basic, tried and true gist of it. To recap. The beginning of the match establishes who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. The heel shines up the babyface, making him look real good as the babyface gives him the business. After giving them what they want, we yank it away from them, as the heel cuts off the babyface's momentum by being a shithead. The heel gets heat on the babyface, beating the crap out of him to garner sympathy for him. Babyface fights back sporadically, but is always cut back off, until the babyface hits a big move, they both go down for a 10 count, or the babyface fights out of a submission hold. Babyface makes a comeback, typically bumping the heel 3 to 4 times and pinning them. Either he wins, or they exchange false finishes, until finally, someone wins. Cool. Now that that's been explained, back to the match at hand. If we take this basic formula and apply it to the pairing of injured heel Jack Evans and relatively healthy babyface Chris Hero, you may notice a problem. Let's think hypotheticals. Jack establishes himself as the heel and Hero as the face. Okay. They wrestle a bit and Hero avails. Okay, believable so far. Jack gets frustrated and cheats. Alright, checks out. And now he's on offense, getting heat on Hero for a while. I don't know about you, but at this point, something in my brain is telling me something ain't right. If you ask me, you kinda can't have little Jack Evans beating up and getting heat on big old Chris Hero. That just doesn't make any physical sense without doing some kind of fuckery. You look at these two guys and you ask who would win in a fight, and nobody is picking Jack Evans. Let's be real. That's not even the whole problem, though. In this scenario, you have Jack Evans, the small but spectacular blonde volador who's already injured, as the bad guy, beating up a 6'4", 270-pound motherfucker literally referred to as the knockout artist. This huge, healthy, badass dude is the good guy who I'm supposed to feel bad for? While I'm supposed to hate the small, injured guy who does cool flips? This is a phenomenon that physicists refer to as ass backwards. Damn, if we could just reverse their roles, suddenly this match makes perfect sense. Jack Evans, the injured babyface who flips around and dazzles the crowd, versus Chris Hero, the big old mean punchy boy. Evans starts by using his quickness and agility to outmaneuver him. Hero eventually takes advantage of the injury, cuts him off, and beats the shit out of him. We feel terrible for the underdog. He fights back and wins or loses valiantly. Either way, he wins our hearts. Doesn't that story just make so much more sense? But those'm's just not the cards we was dealt, unfortunately. Going into this match, Evans is the baddie and Hero is the good guy, whether we like it or not. So if you're in this match, it's the semifinals of the biggest tournament of the year, and you're trying to think of a good story to tell, what do? You get creative. August 30th, 2015. It's night 3 of the tournament, and knowing PWG, it's probably like 2 in the morning by this point. Your commentators are Excalibur and Chuck Taylor. Your ring announcer is what's his name? Jack Evans is all fucked up from getting the dog shit kicked out of him by Brian Cage the night before. Chris Hero is doing fine, it seems. Evans, who apparently had been hanging out with Teddy Hart for too long, cuts a promo to start the match, just like he did with his previous tournament matches. He's talking mad shit for no discernible reason, but it's pretty entertaining nonetheless. Do you realize when you boo me, you're booing The Rock's favorite wrestler? He goes on, and Hero just kind of patiently waits for him to finish, until Jack calls him a pathetic mess, and Hero's like, okay, now wait a minute. He accuses Hero of allowing these PWG shitheads, that's a quote, to get to his head, making him think he can actually beat Jack Evans. And then he starts doing some slam poetry. This is actually taking forever, which is, one way to get heat, I guess. The point is, Jack Evans says Hero can't knock him out, he can't submit him, and he won't even be able to get a 2 count on him, never mind a 3. Okay, Jack, sure. Finally underway, and Hero goes for a knockout early, but Jack uses his speed and quickness to avoid it. Jack catches him with a kick, and Hero spills to the floor. Sasuke's special attempt, and Hero's just like, nah, and he walks away. Something I think more people should do. Hero then elbows him and gets back in the ring, willing to take a count-out victory, but he doesn't get it. Hero lays in some chops, and Evans tries to fight back. Keyword, tries. Hero pops him with an elbow, goes for the pin, and only gets a 1 count. Jack is sticking to his word, it seems, which Hero doesn't seem to appreciate. He says, let me see that pretty face before he kicks it, which is a pretty heelish thing to do, if you ask me. But again, he only gets a 1 count, as Jack defiantly says, not a chance. Hero swings him up and down like a child, and yet again gets 1. Big boy senton, 1 count. Hero's looking annoyed and impressed at the same time. Evans keeps trying to fight back, but Hero's just like, really? And he elbows the fuck out of him. He stacks him up for a pin this time, but still only gets 1. And now we're rolling. The crowd starts to chant 1, and things are happening. Boom, 1 count. Boom bop. Stay down! Puddin' pop. 1 count only. Hero is frustrated. He thinks about it for a second. Alright, what do I do now? He's giving him a bit of time to recover, but I don't think Hero is thinking about it that way. He sees this as in the bag. It's just a matter of how much longer it'll go on for. Mistake. Never underestimate The Rock's favorite wrestler. The Rock could never be wrong. Never. Jack gets some punches in, goes to the ropes, but Hero gets him with a knee. He goes for another elbow, but Jack reverses it into a roll-up and gets a 2 count on Hero. Ha! Evans follows up with a springboard blockbuster. Hero wisely rolls to the outside, and Jack redeems himself from before by actually hitting the Sasuke special this time. Still in better condition than Jack though, despite taking this flurry of cool moves, Hero rolls back into the ring first. Jack sticks to what he knows, tries to build his momentum, and misses some kind of springboard flip move, hits the ropes for follow-up, and runs right into another elbow. Because death by elbow is not just a gimmick. And yet, this little motherfucker still kicks out at 1. At this point, how can you not begin to love him? The crowd makes a full turn and starts chanting, "You can't beat him," which Hero isn't too fond of. Rolling bathical kick, and guess what happens next? The crowd perks up again with a "You can't get to" chant, to which Hero, the consummate performer, plays along with. Because Chris is awesome, we now get dueling chants of "Let's go Hero" and "Let's go Evans." A perfect time for a comeback, if you ask me. A cartwheel kick, eats a boot, but he comes back with a drop kick and a Hurricane Rana. Beautiful standing Sky Twister press, and Hero kicks out at 1. Shit just got real. Some chops, an elbow for your troubles. Hero goes for another to the back of the head, but Jack reverses it with a backslide and gets a 2 count. Feeling the heat, Hero goes for the kill again, and finally, Hero gets a 2 count. Damn. Short pile driver for good measure, and Hero pulls Jack to his feet, ripcords his ass, and knocks him the fuck out. 1, 2, 3. I need a cigarette, and I don't even smoke. Hero leaves, Jack gets the mic after he comes to, and how does he respond to the crowd that now loves him? He basically tells them to fuck off. Ha! I love it. What a roller coaster. Let's go back to our basic match formula for a second. Opener, shine, cutoff, heat, comeback, finish. You remember that, right? That kinda only works if you got a solid babyface and a heel who can pull it off, though. If Chris Hero were the heel and Jack Evans were the babyface, you could follow this formula to a T and it would be perfect. But because the roles were reversed, Evans the heel and Hero the face, following this formula would be weird as fuck to a degree. So what did they do? Well, the opener was the same. Jack came out and established himself as a heel, while Hero, well, he reacted how I think most of us would react, which I guess in my book makes him a babyface. Then, if we followed the formula, Jack would shine up Hero, which he did end up doing, basically just by selling like death. Next would be the cutoff, and that's where we'd run into those problems I discussed before. How does little Jack Evans get heat on big bad Chris Hero? Answer, he doesn't. Hero just continues getting offense in, with Jack getting a few hope spots here and there, building up one after the next. This is where shit gets real interesting. Because of Jack's promise to kick out at one every time, at first he seemed like a cocky asshole. But the more and more it happened, Hero's shine gradually turned into Hero's heat. After a certain point of Jack getting his ass kicked and still kicking out at one, how can you not cheer for the little fucker? And by this point, Hero starts to look like the dick. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what is known as a double turn. Towards the end of the match, through no fuckery but mere simple storytelling, Chris Hero is now the heel and Jack Evans is the babyface. Jack gets his biggest hope spot right towards the end, which you can consider his babyface comeback. It's short, it's subtle, and it fails. Hero finally gets a 2 count, and the next pin attempt he gets 3. We end up respecting the fuck out of Jack Evans, who poetically tells us to go fuck ourselves in the end, reverting us right back to where we started. Indeed, time is a flat circle. It's so simple, it's so effective, it's genius. His palm spaghetti, knees weak, arms spaghetti, there's vomit on his spaghetti. Spaghetti already, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm spaghetti to drop mom's spaghetti, but he keeps on spaghetti. What he wrote down, the whole crowd goes spaghetti. He opens his mouth, but spaghetti won't come out. He's choking now, everybody's joking now. Spaghetti's run out, time's run over, blow! Fucked up.